Ram temple now open and the Pran Pratishtha done, it's time for the great temple run to take off. Ayodhya is open for business like never before. Temple tourism is an opportunity that has thus far been elusive, but hotel chains are now making a beeline for investing. Infrastructure commitments from the government running into over $10 billion and airlines literally waiting in the wings to fly into the temple town of Ayodhya. Business as usual may no longer be the fate of Ram Janmabhoomi. Is this the takeoff moment for Brand Ram and Brand Ayodhya? Is Brand Modi more powerful than ever before? And is the Hindu brand identity now emerging even stronger globally? Joining me to discuss this and more, celebrated ad man and a veteran ad filmmaker Prahlad Kakkar, brand guru Harish, Bijoor, angel investor and corporate strategist Lloyd, Mathias, and editor business, economy and international at TV9 Network R. Sridharan. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We will continue with our discussion after this very quick reaction which is coming from the MD and CEO of TV9 Network, Barun Das, who is at Ayodhya right now. Take a listen in.
बहुत बढ़िया माहौल था, एवरीथिंग पॉजिटिव, सब खुश थे।
कितना बड़ा ऑस्पिशियस ऑकेजन था?
बहुत बड़ा।
कभी आपने सोचा था इसका भी कोई पार्ट होंगे?
नहीं, कभी नहीं सोचा था। I witnessed history being created.
All right, well, that's Barun Das, MD and CEO of TV9 Network, saying that he has incidentally witnessed history firsthand. He's at Ayodhya. We are here stuck in the studio, Shri, but we'll just come to what is going on in Ayodhya. But I think Prahlad Kakkar, if I can start by asking you, no movement in recent history, and of course you have seen the world and you've seen the world of brands and advertising a lot longer than any of us here with you today. But Prahlad Kakkar, if I can start with you, nothing seems to have galvanized this sort of national interest ever in recent history. What do you make of this movement which is on in India right now?
It's a great resurgence of the Hindu identity, and it's terrific for this nation because I think this is an opportunity for even the opposition to actually join hands and make a point that this is a national level monument and it not just belongs to the BJP, it belongs to everybody in this country.
Okay, but the opposition has very conveniently, in fact, decided not to be at Ayodhya, Mr. Kakkar. But beyond the political identity and beyond the political sort of narrative around Ayodhya and the Ram Janmabhoomi, there is obviously the making of Brand Ayodhya. There is this making of a huge tourism opportunity which has eluded this little tinsel town called Ayodhya all this while. What is the opportunity that you are seeing for Ayodhya going forward?
Absolutely. This is now, it's become a hotspot in everybody's mind, and everybody at some stage wants to go and visit the place to see what is actually been done, and it is done in such a scale that everybody is feeling a little overawed and proud, and even non-practicing Hindus who are Hindus have suddenly woken up and said, wow, what's happening?
Okay. Harish, Bijoor, let me take this to you. What is the real awakening here? Is this the awakening of brand Hindu as an identity? Is this, of course, the final nail, so to speak, for the elections, upcoming elections for brand Modi? Or is there a larger brand Ram which is now emerging? Because you've seen, I was doing a little YouTube search before coming into the studio, and this song Ram Aayenge in all its avatars has got, a couple of tens of millions of views on each video which appears on the first page of YouTube when you search for Ram Aayenge original song. I don't know what the original song is. I think every reel on social media is really with this theme song of Ram Aayenge. There are deep fakes of Lata Mangeshkar 3 years after she passed away, singing in her deepfake avatar Ram Aayenge, and today 22nd of Jan, Ram has in some form arrived in Ayodhya at Ram Lala. Which is the brand here which is really going to make headlines and dominate headlines going forward? Brand Ayodhya, brand Ram, brand Modi, brand Hindu?
Well, there are a multiple set of brands out here, and in fact the biggest brand that is out here is Brand India. If you look at it, Ayodhya is being defined to be the center point, and it will become the center point. It is bound to emerge as India's most center point monument, a temple to an origin. And to that extent, it's going to be the center point of India, to an extent, center point of Hinduism, center point of Indians, center point of the Indian diaspora, Hindus, and the Hindu diaspora. If you look at it, Hindus who exist in other countries of non-Indian origin, even for them, this is going to be a very, very holy place.
Okay.
Therefore, a lot of definitions out here. Well, at the end of the day, it's about India resurgence. It's about the fact that India is committed to establish for itself the kind of a dominance that it desires, it wants. And I think today is a very important day, which focuses on that. And if there's one word which comes to mind, it's a bhavya. And I think bhavya is the word which Modi ji had used many years ago, that a bhavya now, Ram Mandir, will be put into place. And it has been put into place. To an extent, it is a promise redeemed.
Absolutely. A promise redeemed. Stay with us, Harish, Bijoor. Before I come to you, Lloyd, Mathias, let me just bring in Sri into this conversation. Sri, Harish, Bijoor is saying that this is likely to be a melting point, a confluence of Hindus from around the world and a global melting point, not just Indians traveling into Ayodhya, but global Hindus traveling into Ayodhya. Is Ayodhya ready to accommodate such influx of tourists?
So, if the 85,000 crore rupees investment that the government is talking about in building the city goes in, then yes, obviously it will be. Now, I would like to take this a little further than what Harish has said, which is that it's not just going to be the most important destination for Hindus in India, but probably the most important pilgrimage point in the world. So today, if you look at it, Kartik, the most important, or in terms of, let's say, the annual revenue that a pilgrimage makes is the holy city of Mecca, where the Hajj and Umrah together, gets the Saudi government about $12 billion a year in revenue.
Right.
Now, if you do a simple, back of the envelope calculation, if you talk about 5 crore Indian, which I think is a huge understatement.
In fact, the estimates suggest anything between 1 crore to 5 crore, and I think even 5 crore is an understatement.
If you look at, Kashi, or if you look at Varanasi, already we've run past those numbers.
Yeah,
true. We're already at 7 crore and, 8 crore. So I think Ayodhya is going to probably go past 10 crore.
Right.
So if you take even 10,000 or 15,000 spent
per individual tourist traveling,
you're already looking at $20 billion revenue.
Absolutely.
So this is going to probably become the richest pilgrimage we'll see in the world.
Right.
For a long time to come.
Right.
So that is what we're talking about. So this is a civilizational movement.
Right.
It is not just an opening of a temple. Like Modi said, this is the turning of the Kal Chakra.
Right.
The time has turned.
Right.
It's turning in India's favor. And we are only going to rise from here on.
Right.
Not just because of that we built a temple, but because I think the whole sentiment and the confidence that India is like building as a nation is going to play out in various sectors.
Absolutely.
Not just in tourism, not just in terms of our Hindu feeling or nationalistic feeling, but it's going to rub off onto our industry, into our entrepreneurship, in every sphere of life, innovation, space and technology. So I think that's the kind of movement which Prime Minister Modi is also alluding to when he talks in terms of Kal Chakra. The time is like the cycle of time has turned in India's favor.
Absolutely. Lloyd, Mathias, let me bring you into this conversation here, and thanks for waiting so patiently all this while. And some numbers back of the envelope calculation is what Sri was talking about. I'd also run some numbers. We are looking at a temple construction cost which is just about 1,800 crore rupees or so. We are looking at government's investments in infrastructure running $10 billion depending on how you calculate it, running into between 83 and 85,000 crore rupees. We are looking at least, I would say, at least 5 crore pilgrims or tourists traveling into the city. And even if they're traveling as families, I've taken a very, very meager average spend of about 2,500 rupees per individual. It's still amounting to about 10,000 crore rupees in revenue for Ayodhya as a city. 10,000 crore rupees every year at a very, very small scale, pessimistic sort of horizon. And we are looking at this cost of 85,000 crore rupees that the government has spent, breaking even in just 8 years. I mean, can there be a business with such extensive capital investment breaking even in just 8.5 years?
Thanks, Kartik. I think clearly not. And I would certainly go with the sentiment expressed by all the previous panelists, Prahlad, Harish, and Sri. I think two great things. I think one, it's clearly a seminal moment, both for the country, for all the population of the country across faiths. I think it's truly big. Second, like you said, I think what it's going to do for Ayodhya, for India, and in a sense for Eastern UP. If you recognize that Eastern UP and Bihar are in a sense among the most economically backward parts of the country. Now the kind of trigger the opening of the Pran Pratishtha, the opening of the temple in a real sense to pilgrims around the world, it's going to do over the next decade and more. It's going to be phenomenal. So in a sense, it's helping lower the kind of economic imbalance in Eastern UP versus the rest of the country. I think the kind of trigger this could provide is phenomenal. I mean, we've read all the numbers. I believe there are 45,000 crores being invested purely in the hospitality sector. So all the big hotel chains.
Right.
So just taking into account what this is going to do for the industry in Eastern UP, I think it's phenomenal. So in that sense, this is truly a huge seminal moment.
Absolutely. Phenomenal for Eastern UP, phenomenal for Ayodhya as a city. Prahlad Kakkar, let me bring you back here. And I want to actually, since you're the ad man here among us, I really want to bring this back to you and your court and really ask you the kind of movement that we are seeing right now. The temple drive which is on in India, practically every second society you visit has either a new temple or a recently renovated temple. The kind of orange flags, Har Ghar Bharua, which Prime Minister Modi has also said, which has incidentally, comes right few days ahead of Republic Day, where Har Ghar Tiranga has been across Republic Day and Independence Day the real fervor. You're talking about Har Ghar Bharua. You're talking about, these little small temples either getting built or getting rejuvenated across the country. And of course, this whole pride associated with the Hindu identity. Do you think this is something which is a fleeting moment right now in history, or are these signs which are here to stay for India?
It's going to be here forever. And as long as the temple stands, as long as there's Ayodhya and there's Ram, it's going to be a great magnet for people, And the two really big, temple areas which people used to visit, one was Kashi and one is Ayodhya.
Right.
And Ayodhya is going to be neck and neck. Kashi has been around for thousands of years.
Right.
But Ayodhya is just coming. So there's going to be a newness to it. There's going to be a new novelty to it. So everybody's first going to divert themselves to Ayodhya and then to Kashi. Whatever it's worth.
If I would not like to, Mr. Kakkar, but if I can put the spotlight on you for just a moment longer before we head into a break.
Yes.
As an ad man, as an ad guru, if you were to send a one-line message to Indians across the world to visit Ayodhya right now, what would that line be?
It's a moment in your lifetime.
A moment in
If
your
you don't
lifetime.
do it now,
If I may.
you'll never do it.
A moment in your lifetime. If you don't do it now, you never would.
If you were to give a punchline like a journalist, Kartik would say, Ram aa gaye, ab tum aa jao.
Ram aa gaye, ab tum aa jao. Ab tum kahin mat jao. We are heading into a short break. We will be back. And of course, there's a lot to discuss about Ayodhya. Ayodhya's readiness, preparedness to attract the kind of tourism that it promises to. And of course, the social development which should and hopefully will happen in the vicinity of Ayodhya. Well, some very interesting statistics and some very interesting numbers out there. Of course, as we know, the Gorakhpur-Faizabad highway is built, and of course, this is a large enough highway to accommodate enough and more people wanting to drive down to Ayodhya. Add to that, the Indian Railways are adding capacity to ferry as many as 60,000 passengers to and from Ayodhya every single day. The Ayodhya airport is ready. And there are flights, including the likes of Indigo, which are already flying into the city of Ayodhya, and many more, including SpiceJet, waiting in the wings to land at Ayodhya. Now, put this in context. The number of tourists who are likely to arrive in Ayodhya every year, by very, very realistic, if not realistic on the side of being too cautious, the estimate suggests that about 5 crore Indians are likely, 5 crore tourists, in fact, not just Indians, are likely to travel into Ayodhya. Look at it in context. This is almost 5 times the number of tourists, in fact, more than 5 times the number of tourists who travel to Mecca every year. This is almost 10 times the number of tourists who travel to the Vatican City every year. That is the amount of tourism attraction potential that Ayodhya holds. Harish, Bijoor, let me bring you into this conversation. 50 million tourists, 5 crore tourists, a big number. Is India going to finally play the tourism card right? Will we be in a position to have the right safety, the right comfort, the right infrastructure, the right number and quality of possibilities offer for tourists to indulge in the city of Ayodhya beyond just a visit to the Ram temple?
Yes, I think this is going to definitely happen. If you look at it, I think infrastructure has fallen into place. The number of people that we're talking about who are likely to visit Ayodhya could be an understatement. And the best part of it is that bulk of the people who are going to turn up at Ayodhya are going to be Indians living in India, in the sense that you do not require a visa to travel to the location and the birthplace of Ram. So if you really look at it, Lord Ram is going to be the draw. And this counterpoint is beautifully managed because of the airport infrastructure, the railway infrastructure, the investments in hotels falling into place. But the important thing to appreciate and understand is that this tourism is likely to be tourism across the spectrum. There is the top of the pyramid tourist, the middle of the pyramid tourist, and the bottom of the pyramid tourist.
Okay.
All infrastructure must cater to all three types of tourists. And I think that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be an estimation challenge. And I think once that falls into place, I think Ayodhya is going to be a point which is going to attract a lot more than anybody else. Tirumala, Tirupati, Devasthanams in the south, Tirupati and Ayodhya in the north.
Okay. Prahlad Kakkar, if I can bring you into this conversation, you know, for some reason, Indian holy tourist sites or religious tourism sites have not really been able to compete when it comes to their ecological balance and the overall cleanliness that we see in the Western counterparts. You've traveled the streets of Banaras. In fact, I've seen many documentaries where you have walked the streets of Banaras. Haridwar is a very famous Hindu pilgrimage site. Even Vaishno Devi for that matter. We haven't really been able to balance ecology, cleanliness with tourism. Is that something that the government of India is paying enough importance on, laying enough importance on? And is that something which really matters to global tourists who come into India?
I think the government of India has actually learned from their upscaling of Banaras.
Okay.
Because in the last 10 years, if you notice, Banaras has been really cleaned up. And it is now a delight to walk through the streets and to go to the temple and to turn around and listen to the Aarti in the evenings. And it's really quite amazingly well done. So taking a leaf out of there, I think the planning in terms of infrastructure and the way it's been structured so far is actually pretty bang on.
Okay.
So that, you know, it's not ad hoc, it's not unplanned, because see what happens is the 5-star hotels and the 4-star and the 3-star hotels are all planned.
Mm-hmm.
But the lodges and the cheaper accommodation is never planned because it's on private land.
Right.
And they come up willy-nilly.
Right.
And I think for once the government is actually keeping an eye on segments of how, when, what, how much they can build, where they can build, how much gaps to leave between each other, and so forth. So everything is not cheap by jowl.
All right.
Also, the fact is that if they're going to put in so much money into the whole infrastructure, they're going to put in a full cleanliness drive. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Banaras today, it's clean twice a day.
Right.
And it is absolutely amazing. You have to go to Kashi to actually understand what Mr. Modi has done to that
right.
place in the last 10 years.
Right.
To be able to
sure. While I agree with you, Mr. Kakkar, you know, there are other challenges also to cities like Kashi and Mathura. Not least among them is traffic management and safety and security. So while the ecology may be taken care of, while the infrastructure might come in, but do you think Ayodhya needs to, given the little gullies that traffic has to navigate through, do you think enough and more importance now needs to be laid on traffic management, parking lots to come up, making only walk zones, pedestrian only, no traffic movement, no motorcycles, no scooters, no honking, no pollution emitting? Are we doing enough? Are we thinking in that direction?
I think they are. I think most of the approaches to the temple at least and into the town will become walk zones.
Right.
And all the parking and all that will be peripheral. All the transport from the parking to the sites will be electric.
Right.
And through electric buggies, so it will be very convenient for everybody. And it is going to be planned and very, very well monitored, because this is a feather in the government's cap in a very, very big way, because it's internationally
Right.
going to be carried out. And
Absolutely.
people are going to come and judge
Right.
the execution of the entire job and the involvement of the government on
Right.
the basis of its hygiene, its convenience,
Absolutely.
and the fact that there's very little noise and noise pollution.
Absolutely. In
So,
fact, Shri,
Kartik,
we've seen
yeah.
that in Taj Mahal, we've seen that in Golden Temple. What are your views on how
So,
it's managed
Kartik,
in
I think
Ayodhya?
the opportunity here exists because there's a 70-acre, project site.
That's right.
Temple itself is on a little more than 2-acre, plot.
Right.
But this is a 70-acre, project. And if you look at the older, temples that you mentioned,
Right.
let's say if you take Varanasi, Banaras, Kashi, Mathura also.
Right.
These are all historical places that have existed.
Of course.
There are hutmans,
And
people
towns
who
have
lived
come around
them.
it. Yeah.
So it's become very difficult for you to
Redevelop the
rejuvenate,
whole
redevelop
region.
these
True,
places.
absolutely.
Okay. But here we have an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think the government will make an example of it, and hence the investment that's going into it. I think they thought through it. And this could actually be a very interesting case study on how we build our important pilgrimages going forward.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Lloyd, let me bring you in here. And I think, it's not just the ecology, it is not just traffic management. There is a much larger economic imperative here. And the economic imperative, in fact, stems from the fact that those who would have perhaps invested in a piece of land pre the 2019 Supreme Court judgment would have seen their investment into acquiring land, the same piece of land, now selling for as much as 10 times more. And reports suggest that by 2023, there could be a further addition of about 20 times to the cost of land in Ayodhya. I don't know if you invested in Ayodhya or not, but I am really feeling like a loser that I did not.
You're absolutely right, Kartik. I think when any large project comes up, infrastructure, an airport like the Bijoor airport, or something as phenomenal as the Ram Mandir, I think the impact is bound to happen.
Okay.
Right? But I think few of us expected to see the extent of euphoria. Right? We all knew about the inevitability of this in 2019 after the Supreme Court judgment,
Yeah.
and the fact that before the election, so around 2024, the inauguration would happen.
Yeah.
I think the fervor that it's generated in the last fortnight, and especially today, you can see it is permeated every possible group, right?
Right.
It's not WhatsApp groups, but, old school and college alumni. I think
Right.
it's been phenomenal. So certainly, I think there's an economic upside, which I'm sure India is ready right now to capitalize upon. I think,
Right.
like Shri also mentioned, this is one of the landmark sites, one of the possibly the world's most visited site over the next decade that we've had the opportunity to plan for. So this
Right.
is not a post facto. This is not
Absolutely.
building around existing stuff. So the whole 70-acre site, all the infrastructure coming around in Ayodhya, from the new airport to the revamped railway station to the highways, I think all this is going to be new. So I think this is going to be a prime example of how spirituality can not just drive devotion,
Yeah.
it can also have huge economic upsides.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, coming as it does in a part of the country that's been economically backward, Eastern UP,
Yeah.
I think this is the perfect fillip required. I would say in the next decade or so, this has the ability to pitchfork UP from being among India's slightly more backward states to possibly among the leading lights.
Absolutely. So since Lloyd is mentioning about the city Ayodhya, Shri, and we're coming almost to the close of this discussion, I want to actually highlight some startling numbers which arise on by account of the per capita income in Ayodhya versus when you look at it. So per capita income of Ayodhya is just about 24,000. That is a much lower figure when you take India's national average, which is just a little under a lakh. So Ayodhya has, for the last 30 years at least, since the dispute really came into public imagination. Of course, the dispute has been on for 500 years, but last 30 years, we haven't seen the needle on the per capita income move. True. Now, of course, you will see some influx of talent, some retention of talent, but I think if I were to request you to wear the hat of the international editor of TV9 Network, there are global examples where you walk the cities of Rome, for example, or even you go to Paris, you go to the Eiffel Tower, you go to the Statue of Liberty. There are these great opportunities for tourists to actually do a lot more than just visit those monuments. Ayodhya will offer you hotels, will offer you infrastructure, will offer you a visit to the Ram temple. It has to develop a lot more when it comes to restaurants, when it comes to some sort of other, engagements and entertainment options. I'm not talking about nightlife. It's a religious pilgrimage site. I'm not talking about pubs. I'm talking about just a lot more avenues to open. Are we going to do that?
I think we should do that, Kartik, because, since this is a government which is very tech friendly, why not create a Ramayana experiential museum which is completely high tech?
Absolutely.
With all kinds of gadgets and gizmos that people can interact, touch and feel with. So I think those ideas will probably come as the city develops, as Ayodhya develops, but there is absolutely an opportunity exists to make it truly a showcase pilgrimage destination within India that the world can look at and say, yes, these guys have done something which is truly unique. I think that opportunity exists and we should aim for it definitely as a country, especially under this government and Mr. Modi's leadership, because he's so passionate about this project. I think we should see that happening.
And do you see retention of talent in Ayodhya as well as influx of fresh talent from the likes of Gorakhpur, from cities like Faizabad, from cities like Lucknow really coming into the city of Ayodhya? Or is it largely going to be temple tourism, priests, little stalls that sell prasad and garlands, or is it really going to expand beyond that? I'll tell you, my basic quarrel really with most Indian tourist sites is that I find it hard anywhere outside the airports in India to find an India fridge magnet. I see it everywhere else in the world. I don't see that here in India.
And cities and towns with much less history, millions selling their merchandise. And we are a country only of history. We are an ancient civilization. So to your point, I think the core of Ayodhya and the temple premises, the surrounding ought to remain for the purpose which they've been developed, which is a religious, spiritual kind of an experience. But if the economy around Ayodhya develops, it becomes more prosperous, people have investment, I think it may not be far-fetched to imagine that you may have smaller satellite cities and towns that spring up that are living off this whole huge kind of an opportunity, economic wealth creator, Ayodhya temple. So that could well happen into the future. But I think the core of Ayodhya will probably remain what it is meant to be, a religious experience for people, a birthplace of Ram, and for people to come and enjoy and soak in that moment, that experience, and and feel blessed.
Absolutely, feel blessed. Well, I don't want to let go just as yet, but before I end the show, I want to do a very little small sample size dipstick. That is the number of 5 crore Indians really going to stand or not. So let me begin with you, Prahlad Kakkar. Is Ayodhya on your wish list, bucket list? Have you made your bookings already? If so, what are the timelines? If not, when do you intend to do it?
Well, soon, but it's definitely on my wish list.
Okay.
Definitely want to see the potential of the place.
Okay.
As a tourist destination.
Okay.
And as in terms of the side shows that go on in spite of the temple.
Okay.
Which is the Ram Leela, the Kathas, the people, singing songs and performing and street artists and so forth and so on. That would really make the place come alive.
Okay, so Ayodhya is definitely on Prahlad Kakkar's bucket list and wish list. Harish Bijoor, if I can come to you, what is the timeline, and when you do visit, what is the one thing that you definitely expect coming your way in Ayodhya, apart from the visit to the Ram temple?
Well, I definitely want to visit the Ram temple, and I definitely will be there during 2024 for sure. Let the initial hullabaloo settle down.
Okay.
And I want to be there not for a day, but I want to spend a week there. Okay. Enough time to absorb Ayodhya, because Ayodhya is a thought, and that thought needs to be absorbed with time.
Okay. Lloyd, Mathias, if I can come to you, is temple tourism, Ram Mandir, the visit to Ram Lala, looking at, that statue really on your wish list, or would you go there just to experience life in Ayodhya and the development?
Absolutely, both. I certainly would like to. I've visited spiritual places, important religious places around the world. So it's certainly very much on my wish list.
Okay.
And I also want to see the transformation of a town that I'd seen, I would say, about 15 years ago as a traveling salesperson, to see what the consecration of one mega temple can do. And I'm really, really excited. So maybe towards the end of 24 or early 25, just want to see the radical transformation of what spirituality can do in more ways than just spiritual, the economic impact of spirituality. I'm excited. I certainly will want to go to Ayodhya.
Okay, Shri, you and I are stuck here. We are very close to Ayodhya.
I have no plans to, be stuck. I will take time out to go to Ayodhya, Kartik. Not just me. In fact, my entire extended family, comprising 30 people, plan to go to Ayodhya. And I just want to point out, to what Harish had said yesterday, earlier, that this is not unlike any other, pilgrimage destination. If you look at Varanasi and other places, it's largely older people who go there.
Right.
This is going to be an entire family kind of an outing. So you have 6, 7, 10 people going.
Yeah.
So that is why the number of 5 crore that you're talking about, Kartik, is a very serious,
small
bad
number.
Underestimate. I think it's going to be 10 crore at minimum.
Right.
Take my word for it. It'll be much more than 10 crore.
So in your list of 30 people, Shri, I'll request you to add a +1 and take me along as well. I visited Ayodhya in 2017 and I think 2024, Ayodhya calling definitely seems to be on agenda.